So here's a really quick program just to summarize everything that we have learned. So in all of our programs, we always have a step 0 to declare an initialized variable. So let's make a variable of every type that we've learned about so far. So we have had integers, so let's go for age equals -1 because we're going to validate that, and that's going to be an integer. And we have had real numbers which store decimals, so let's get height, which I will set to -1.18, so that is a real, but Python will probably talk about it as a float, but in the exam call it a real. We will have another variable called hasPassed, which we are going to set equal to false, and that is a boolean. And we have string variables, which we will get the user's name, so I'll set that equal to just null, to no value, to empty, so string. And we'll get the house, which we're going to save as a character, which is, remember, 1 in length. So some of the things that we have done this year are inputs. So let's use inputs to get the user's age. So remember, we've used this casting function to ensure that the variable that's entered is an integer, a whole number. And then we've also learned about conditional loops, and we've also learned about validation. And this is a complex condition that I've typed there. So let's just say that the maximum age is 150, and obviously you can't be younger than 0. And this is how we ensure that data entered is within range. We've also learned about outputs and how to display variables and text. So if we run that now, there's actually quite a lot of code we've got there. So just save that and we'll see the code execute in this window. So if I try and enter in 200 for my age, it will loop until we enter something that is within that allowable range, and then it's displayed. Some of the other things we've learned about this year are if statements. So a simple condition would be one that only has one condition to check, like so. This only has one condition. So if we print out you have entered an invalid height. Yep, so we can run this again and it will ask me my age, and it will say you've entered an invalid height because this condition that is checked here is true. So if we want to do something with height, we can use the same idea as we had for integer to input that value. So I won't validate that, so maybe you guys can try and use this code up here to help you validate it. We can leave that if statement for now. So some of the rides at Universal Studios and so on require you to be over certain heights. So we can say that if you're taller than 1.8, we could print out that you can use the adult rides. So again, that's a simple condition, but we can also continue that if statement and specify a range. So let's see, if you're less than or equal to 1.8 meters and your height is greater than 1.2, then print you can use the child rides, and else we can print out you can only use the baby rides. So again, this is a complex selection statement that has multiple if clauses. This one has a simple condition. This one has a complex condition, as there's two conditions to satisfy in order to make that true and print out this part of the statement. Now we could do that with separate ifs, but it's silly because the minute that Python finds a match for one of these conditions, it just terminates. It doesn't check the rest of these items of code. And really the only other thing we've learned this year is for loops that we can use to print out a certain number of times or do things a certain number of times. So if I try and print out the name here, hopefully you can see that when we do that, so we enter age, we don't hit the validation loop. If I try and enter in something invalid, like 0 for my height, or we didn't validate that, which is why it hasn't printed anything out, it will tell me I can only use the baby rides because the first two weren't true, but it didn't tell me it was invalid because we wrote in 0, which is not less than 0. And you can see here it's actually printed out blank lines, and that is because name, if we look at it, is initialized to just an empty string value. So if we want to actually display our name there, we would have to say name equals input, please enter your name. And now when we run it again, we get the same as before, 33. Oops, sorry, I accidentally hit enter there before I typed anything. 33, and if we try and enter in -10 for height, this time it will allow us to enter it, so we'll get that you have entered an invalid height, but it's obviously not repeating on asking us because it's not a loop, which shows you that if statements are executed once and once alone unless they're inside loops. You can see that it's printing out you can only use the baby rides because the first two conditions or the first two if clauses in this selection statement aren't met, and we're now waiting for the user input for your name. And you can see that that loop executes 5 times, and the little cheat for Python to work out how many times it executes is to take the number on the right and subtract the number on the left. So this loop executes 5 times. Now one of the most important things that we can do with loops that we've worked out and looked at is to get them to tell us the count, how many indexes, and quite often people get confused with what I actually is. Now I is a loop counter, so I'm just going to change the name of that quickly and show you how that doesn't change the code. I is not a required variable name. So if we enter in 4 for height, please enter your name. You can see that it prints it the exact same number of times, so it might be useful for people to think of that variable there as something that counts how many times the loop's executed, and it terminates when it equals that number on the right. So if we wanted this to display out what the value of that is, and I'm just going to put a little space in there just so we can see it together and run it again, you can see that when we look at this, if we enter in our age and their height, it tells us about which rides we can use, because you would expect here maybe that you can use the adult rides if you're 1.8 meters tall, but obviously 1.8 is not taller than 1.8, so that's false. So it triggers the second condition because both of those are true. It is less than or equal to 1.8 and bigger than 1.2. And now when I enter my name this time, we'll see a number next to it. Now it prints out from 0 to 4, which is 5 different loop executions, but computers start indexing, they start numbering from 0. Now we could change that to 1 to 5 if we wanted to start our loop running at 1. Just enter in data, and you can see this time that loop executes 4 times because 5 minus 1 is 4. So these numbers obviously change the number of times that that loop will execute. You can see to get to execute 5 times starting at 1, we would have 1 and 6. So that is really all of the Python that we've learned this year so far. So if you want to have a practice, just try typing up that code, manipulate it, change it, invent some silly things for it to do just to get comfortable with using different variables. And we didn't look at the Boolean one. You could maybe just change your Boolean here to can use the adult rides. and use boolean to set that, and it's very easy to change it. You could change that in here and just have can, I'll just change or make a new one, can write adult equals false, and in this instance can write adult equals true. It make more sense to call it something like that. So that's everything that you need to know about Python so far that we're going to build on after the holidays. So get practicing these different tasks.